Hey, good day and welcome. Glad to have everyone here for our C12 Ministry webinar on holistic employee development. We've got three panelists for us to meet and talk to today that are C12 members, and we're excited about sharing this time with you. Our focus today for this webinar is going to be around the idea that we want to serve and support our employees and bringing their whole self to work, and knowing that they're bringing their whole self to work, they're bringing challenges and they're bringing opportunity for development in their own personal lives. And so we think that's an important way that we can minister to employees and serve and support them. And we're just excited. Today is just going to be a conversation with three members of C12 and the different ways that they've implemented on this concept, and hopefully to provide you with the opportunity to learn a little bit about where they started, where the program is today, what their hopes are for it, and what the impact has been. So the flow for today, we're going to take about 5 minutes and interview each one and get some perspective on what they've done and how they put that together, and give you a chance to hear more about it and be thinking about questions you might have. Thank you for being online with us today. If you've got questions, we encourage you to go ahead and put those in the chat, and we'll be monitoring those. And then later in the webinar, we'll give it an opportunity for our panelists to actually answer those questions and some more that we've developed as well. Just want to say a word about where we're doing our webinar or recording our webinar from today. We are at Westwood Avenue, and we're being supported technically by On the Avenue Foundation. I want you to learn more about ontheavenuefoundation.org. Go online, see what they're doing and the good work that they have. I'll also mention this. There are show notes or an attachment that's both been put in the chat, and it's on the Eventbrite, so you have access to that information. You'll find in that the bios for each of our panelists. You'll find some answered questions already there, so they can tell you a little bit about what they're doing, as well as some important attachments that will also help you as you go through discovery as well. So I want to mention lastly that we have already had two other ministry webinars. One was on employee care funds, and the other was on employee service projects. So those were very, very well done and very good experience. So we encourage you to check those out as well if that's an interest for you. Let me start by just briefly introducing and letting you know who's with us today. We're glad to have Dow Smith with Dow Smith Company. So welcome, glad you're here. Josh Tatum with BECI. So glad you're here today. And then we've asked Kendra Sewell to join us from Bowling Green, and she's with Pan Austin. So glad to have these guests with us today. So I'm going to just jump in. So the beauty of what we've kind of set up is we actually get to just take off from the conversation we've already been having ahead of time, and really just talk about, hey, what are you doing today that is helping your employees develop physically, emotionally, and spiritually? Because we recognize as followers of Jesus that everybody's a spiritual being as well. So we want that to be incorporated. Yeah. But Dow, let me start with you. Kind of where are things at today?
Well, they're at a great place. What we do is we're calling it our well-being program.
Yep.
And it started from the care matrix. If you look at our model, basically that was the care matrix plan graphic, and we just simply took that. In fact, that's actually our skeleton, and we put a little muscle and skin on it.
And color. Looks really good.
And some color, but the care matrix really is the skeleton of this program and even of that graphic, Duane.
Good. I'll mention this too. The caring matrix, we've actually got your caring matrix linked. So when we talk about that, if you're not familiar with C12 lingo related to that, that's one of the ways we help companies develop their strategic plan for ministry.
Probably the most unique thing that we have in our context, though, is our director, Holly Potts, is also a certified life coach.
Yeah.
So a key part of what we provide is life coaching, and that is different from person to person. And it just starts, where are you at in your journey, and where do you want to go in your journey? And she just takes it from there. Yeah. And then creates a plan and a strategy to go wherever you feel called to go. And sometimes that's simple, and sometimes it could be very horizon bound. Mm-hmm. It just varies person to person.
Yeah. Now, talk me through the parts you can remember off the top of your head, the 8 parts of the well-being program. And, you don't have to talk about all the questions, but we've got those as a sample for folks as well. But talk us through kind of those. And
it's basically all of our needs that we have. Yeah. Emotionally, mentally, financially, spiritually, So just all those things that we're dealing with in our lives and that we all have to deal with. Some areas we're doing well at, some areas maybe we're not doing well at. And so it's based upon that concept, Duane, of the whole body and our whole needs.
That's great. That's great. Thanks, Dow.
Thank you.
All right, jump to you, Josh.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you're meeting the needs of employees physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
Yeah. So first, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. So similar to Dow, we're using started when we as a group came into C12 looking at the caring matrix today. We're using a number of things from what we call squad time. We have 2 squad times that meets once a month on Fridays. We have been plowing through the life of David, which is amazing. So I've been on that journey for almost 2 years now. About to wrap that up coming into the end of this year. And then other things like, Ramsey Solutions, Smart Dollar for some physical needs, financial needs, and another array of things we picked up along the way, piece by piece.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about. So you've got right at 120 employees.
Yeah,
and then how many are participating in the squads?
Yeah, so we've had as many as 40 unique participants on any given Friday when we host. Somewhere around 20 to 25. Is a pretty good number. So. Yeah. We've added 2 squad time. We have, we're outgrowing one of them, so we had to add a second. We're on our way to maybe a third before the end of the year. So,
and these were primarily groups you put together and said invited people to study the life of David, King David.
Yeah,
and started there. Yeah. I've already got like a ton of questions running through my head. I want you to unpack for us, but we'll save those for the next round. So, right. Kendra, welcome.
Yes,
and
thank
go
you
ahead
for
and share
having
with
me.
us.
Yeah, so we a manufacturing company, about 150 employees. But one of the things that I really wanted to empower is, the scripture is our blueprint for loving and living life, but it's also how we lead. So I wanted to try to incorporate a bigger group than just the executive team. So we actually started kind of with our care teams, if you will, and did an employee survey that just asked our entire group, like, what are you needing? What would you like to see from us? And almost sit back and let them tell us what they needed. Then around that, we were able to incorporate specific care teams. The 3 top that came out were physical and fitness, obviously, the financial education and well-being, and then finally more on community service and how they could get involved in the community outside of just our day-to-day work. So we developed smaller care teams in those 3 categories and then allowed those committees to serve within different organizations. So it was not just the executive or leadership or senior management teams, but we actually let people that were some of our newer entry to work or from different departments within the company sign up for which committee they wanted to serve on. And then they're spearheading the events and things that we do in those different departments.
Yeah. So we've included an attachment. Thank you to your survey, the questions you asked the employees. It was a really simple survey, but
very simple.
Provided you with a lot of information. I think you also shared that your chaplain that serves your employees, it's one of the services you offer, actually contributed to that as well, kind of giving perspective without disclosing anything that they can't disclose.
Exactly.
Talk to me a little bit about, I know you've just launched the financial training that's going on with that. So give us an update on that. And then in particular, talk about the community people that you involved in that as well.
Yeah, so I think the biggest benefit we've seen from the financial aspect is we were able to involve some smaller companies in our community that were more wealth advisors, and then also our local university, Western Kentucky University, that they were able to come in and tailor a program just for us.
That's great.
So they've come in and we've done 2 sessions. It's an 8-week course. And so far, both of those sessions, we had a good participation, about 10%. The first week that we held it, and then the next week we were able to increase that to about a 12 to 13% participation rate. And we're just hearing good things from that. So the word's starting to spread, and it's been beneficial so far.
in a lot of these programs, when we start, right, and everybody's like, no, I'm not sure I'm going to go to that this time. But when people come out with a great experience, the people are like, you've got to go to the next
Right,
one that's available.
exactly.
So I'm sure you're excited about that.
We are, yes.
And I like the diversity of the team, right? You've invited people from across different departments in the organization to
Correct.
participate in helping to determine how that's set up.
Right. Yeah. So we're getting a voice from various different people within our organization that are very different spots in their life and their needs. So that diversification is really helping.
Now I'm going to put a bookmark here. You have a heart for sharing the faith that you have, but also respecting where people are at. You've got 10 different ethnicities
We do.
that are part of your organization that represents different faiths. And so you're respecting that, but at the same time, this is a doorway. So I'll leave it at the doorway part. We'll come back and we'll talk about that again. Josh, tell us about the squads a little bit more, and in particular, you guys jumped right in. So whereas in Kendra's case, right, they said, well, we're going to start with kind of more of the life skills issues and let that be the first thing people start with. You guys started with spiritual. What was your journey that got you to that point?
Yeah. I mean, as a company, we're 35 years old. And so we joined C12 in 2019 on the pursuit of trying to bring ministry, more forward facing in our workplace. Over that journey, who runs our squad time is our ministry coordinator, Alex Jones. He's been great. One of the challenges we had as a partnership group was we felt like we couldn't be the face of those squad times, or, I guess we're walking through these Bible studies. We felt like it was a better spot to allow for an employee to do that.
Right.
And it's been successful. By allowing a safe spot for them to land with somebody that's not an owner of the company, has been successful. And then, Alex was able to cultivate another individual to then run the second, squad time. And so it's really cool to see the company take on its own, path outside of us to grow these things.
Yeah. You'd shared with me earlier too that the journey actually started with you as a partnership team doing some of your own work. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that's right. So 4 years ago, as we started to really explore what this meant to us and how we wanted to bring our faith into the workplace, we decided as a partnership team that it started with us. We needed to make sure that we were all aligned in what we were trying to achieve. And so we went through Real Life Ministries has a discipleship manual, they call it. And so we, as a partner group, ran through that entire manual a month at a time. We take chunks and chapters, and I would highly encourage anybody to pick that up and go through it, even if on your own time, but in a group setting is that much better. So we started there, and then the next step after that was, well, let's take it out to the company. And that's where squad times were born. The ministry coordinator we put into place, we announced it globally, and then, squad times were the first step in that direction.
Yeah. I appreciate you mentioning, and I'll just put a pin in this. I keep talking about bookmarks and pins. I don't know what else to call them. So I'm going to put a pin in this. Just one of the things we do with C12 is we help companies, help business leaders live out their faith fully, while also not violating laws, right? While also respecting people. And so one of the things you just demonstrated was we encourage business owners and executives within the organization not to lead prayer groups, not to lead small groups, because it creates maybe an unsafe environment or an unintended requirement to participate. And so I love that you guys were monitoring that and respecting that.
Well, and another resource we used is Alliance Freedom.
Alliance Defending Freedom.
Right.
Yep.
So we went back to our employee handbook, and we put in language that we were a faith-based company or a faith-forward company, and another resource we were able to use to take another step forward.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now tell us about your journey. You didn't all of a sudden land on a life coach and a well-being project, right? You took a journey to get there.
We did, and it kind of started one with a chaplain, and I really like you use phrase ministry coordinator. He took on the title chaplain, but with that very much was our ministry coordinator. And with that, then meshed in, hey, the care metrics plan. So it started with John,
right,
and doing that, incorporating that, and then with that, we kind of added some responsibilities in what he did, so that way he could have normal work time with other coworkers.
So specifically, that would be like what?
Well, for him, the duties that he took on was safety.
Yep.
He took on some safety and would do our toolbox talks. One, that just was a natural safety and care to me fit very well together, but that gave him face time and organic conversation time with coworkers. And so with that, relationship could develop. And then that could go deeper as his coworkers wanted to go. John retired. We realized we got to have somebody rotate into this position. Too many good things were happening. And so we decided to fill that spot with Holly Potts. Holly came and she very much had the chaplain part taken care of, but she was also in a journey going, I'm going into life coaching as well. And we said, we can definitely see how that would work.
Right.
And so she came in and she sat in the seat of chaplain. We just moved some things around. And so with that, we just said, okay, we now have a chaplain that also offers this service as well, too, life coaching. And so we as a leadership team, me real quick, I've learned that there's nothing like getting trained listening from a certified, whether that be a counselor, therapist, or whatever. There is incredible value when I'm getting that listening service and those probing questions. I jumped in both feet, leadership team with that. And I noticed real quick, my productivity was ratcheting up. When I could put my struggles and issues before us in that context, I noticed real quick, my productivity went up and my effectiveness went up. And so other people started doing it, and it was not measurable, but it was clearly seen. Those of us that were receiving the service, our productivity was moving the needle.
Yeah.
And we took the approach of attraction rather than promotion. We would let people know it's available, but they could really see, wow, I could see that. I could share with others. This is really blessing me. And so it has really grown from something small to now we have a life coaching capacity issue. We brought in Cody, and he's now a certified life coach, and we've had the transition of him doing stuff to him doing this.
Yeah.
But it goes back, we just found our productivity is directly related to how effective our well-being program is running.
Well, and I want to pull on that a little bit, because what I hear you saying is productivity went up, which is a business kind of mindset. And so we might think you're developing them in their job activities, but actually you're saying you're working on their personal life, their wholeness.
We are very much so.
And as a result of working on the wholeness, that's what you're seeing productivity jumping up from. People are healthier.
People are healthier. And it's I'll kind of, there's a couple of analogies I want to say, but I'll go with this concept. I believe, and I know in our case, any organization where their employees are engaged, great things happen.
Yeah.
And employees, we're all feel more engaged when we feel cared for.
Yeah.
There's just a natural, when you feel cared for, when you feel and experience care, your engagement level goes up.
Yeah.
And so with that, our engagement level was already at a high place, but it took another tick up. And because of our engagement and our caring for each other, our level of taking care of our clients has gone up another tick as well too.
Yeah, I love it. And what you're touching on is too, just our intentionality around, we've met Jesus, and we know that his gospel restores and develops and helps us. And so with that impact on our own lives, we're wanting people to experience that in all aspects of their life. And so what I often say is not only teaching the gospel, but actually sharing it in life experience. And so that's how you guys are applying that. And guess what? It's having a business benefit.
A big one.
Yeah, but that's great. So Kendra, let me jump back to you, and we'll go back to that bookmark that I put for you there, and just ask you kind of to unpack that a little bit.
Yes, I think from coming in, I'm somewhat new in the role. Been president of the company now for 3 years, but I've been there for 17 years. And as you said, we have 12 different ethnicities now, 10 different languages spoken, a ton of different religious beliefs. So my biggest hurdle, I guess, in coming into this was how do I approach this? And that's where C12 really came in, was giving some guidance and some direction. But for me, I feel as if my employees see not only myself and our leadership team, but everyone in the company caring for one another, we're showing Jesus in that way.
That's right.
And so it's not so much that we're trying to push a certain belief or push an agenda. It's more just how do we show care in every aspect. And again, that can be from how do we help you with the chaplaincy program? That's been huge for us. But also, like I said, the financial piece, or how do we get you healthier? How can we teach you something here that maybe you can take home to a spouse and share with them about your budgeting or how to make your household healthier because of that? We also had a huge initiative at the beginning. We started our chaplaincy program about aging parents. And quite frankly, that was not an area that I'd even given thought to. So what can we do to help our employees that are more tenured, that are struggling in that? So just bringing that whole perspective into play, that we're all at different places. And when you look at our workforce, very, very diversified, not only in ethnicity and religion, but also age-wise. I mean, we have individuals that are 18 years old that just started with us, and we have individuals that have been working with us for 30 plus years that are in their 60s, and their phases of life and seasons of life are going to change. If we can just show care in a variety of different ways as they go along that path, that's really my objective. Yeah, that's beautiful. I want to sign up for the helping your parents as they get older class. How do we get access to that? That was one of when we did our survey, that was an area in the comments section that a lot of people just wrote in, really struggling in this area. And our chaplain has been phenomenal in that regard, and even done a few little classes here and there that I think individual classes that have helped tremendously with that. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and put a note here to say, if you have a question that you'd like to hear answered by the panel, we'd love to get your questions. So go ahead and be posting those on the chat or as a question. And I'm actually going to turn to you all. You've been listening to each other share, and I know you were excited about hearing about small groups and how that was implemented. Do you have any questions for the other panelists that might say, hey, I'd like to know more about that, or what was the detail about that was helpful?
So I heard you say your ministry coordinator identifies somebody to start or lead that class. I really like that concept. It kind of tells me it's more peer-led. Yeah. And so how much work of finding and developing that first person, what'd that look like? How's that going?
Yeah, so Alex, Matt Sorrow's a gentleman here in Nashville, actually, that is leading the other group. And so Matt was just engaged, so first he just saw a guy that was engaged, had asked, can I help? Is there something I can do? And so Matt started, with Alex, walking alongside of him and helping him with the current course content they were going over. So it would build it together. And then eventually got to the point where Matt, it was a different time. So we have one at 7 a.m. for the early birds, and then one at 11 a.m. Both of them, fall somewhat within work hours. But the 11 a.m. Matt runs. And so Alex would, then shadow him in that and provide counsel, help where needed. And so it was a process, over a period of 2 or 3 months that, led to that. But I think it started with a genuine interest. It wasn't, hey, Matt, I need you to do this. It was just, he had an interest to contribute to the team. So, yeah. Good. And then one thing I thought, Dow, as you were speaking, the ministry coordinator for us, you guys have somebody, it sounds like it's more of a full-time position. Is that right?
It's very much, yes. Holly is very, very much full-time, a part of our strategic team. Yeah. And now
adding another part to her team.
That's correct. Yeah.
So Alex for us is a part-time position. Obviously we'd love for that to be a full-time position one day, and we could see that happening. We supplement his efforts. We call him a coordinator because truly, he spends the other portion of his time in a production environment where, like you said, with safety, he gets to touch all of our offices because we're a distributed workforce, and so he's in a role where he does get to touch everybody strategically and work with them and kind of check in and see where he can help out. But Marketplace Chaplains is another tool that we
use. It's a great resource
because we are spread out across the nation.
Yeah.
So two questions I'm going to go ahead and tee up. We'll talk about the first one. Where would you tell people to start? One of the things that we love to do with C12 is help people take their next step. So, you know, if somebody's considering starting with this, where would you have them start? It might be even a reference back to something we've already talked about, but where would you have them start? And then the next is, why is this important to do? What's been the impact? You might have a specific person you can think of that has been impacted, share that with us, or you experienced somebody who didn't get the impact. It may have been the negative, right? It was somebody we should have helped, we could have helped, but we didn't. But kind of what the why behind that. So I'll start with, you know, whoever wants to go first, but I'll start with, where should somebody start if they're saying, I've never done this before, but I want to get going?
Well, I can speak personally that I looked at our caring matrix when I first joined C12, and you know, we put a lot of energy and effort into our financial statements and KPIs. So I saw that as a starting point, is I've got to make this one of our top priorities. So it's just as similar to what we see in C12 with the 5-point alignment. I've got to make ministry a big piece of that. And then it was really honestly using the caring matrix and seeing what other people were doing. And then starting very small. And again, it wasn't top down for me. I don't feel like that's a good approach in our industry. So I brought in a group of individuals and got their input on, how do we do this? Where do we start? And listening to what the true need of your company is, because it's going to be very different for each of us. Yeah.
And that's really beneficial, because when we talk about the caring matrix, we start asking the question, how do we meet employees' physical needs, emotional needs, before we try to reach out and meet spiritual needs? And so it sounded like that's where you started, was you said, we've got to find a way to meet the physical needs of our employees. Great. Josh, what about you? Where would you tell people to start?
Yeah, and I love the idea of starting small, because I think that's it. If you go in and you just think you're going to tackle the world, like I don't think that's the way that works, at least not in my experience. And so I would just recommend starting somewhere, starting small, and then start. You know, I heard you mention the word need too. So find that need. For us, the thing that's worked the greatest is just an invitation. You know, like an invitation to participate. So take for the example, squad time, or the chaplains, or even I've taken I run these cohorts now with some of my leadership team, and I've taken the balance wheel that we use in C12 and use that as just a place to talk about life, and you know, bring people in the room, and that idea of like a spiritual journey brings people in and invites a conversation. So I think that's just start small and create the invitation for it.
Good. I'm gonna stay with you a second, because we do have an online question. So asking the question, Josh, talk about squad time. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah. So squad time, we go through. It's somewhat guided, right? So we go through a passage of scripture. You know, usually a chapter. We'll skip every once in a while. You know, 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel. We've been working through that. But, you know, we go through, you know, a format picked up by Alex, and something he brought in from his career as a ministry or in ministry before he came with us, is, you know, read it. You know, we'll go through and we'll read the passage. We'll go through and recreate it. So popcorn around the room. And then we'll go through and have somebody create a story, you know, tell the story themselves. So there's 3 different ways that we go about telling the passage. And then after that, we get into the 2 questions usually that, you know, will tee everybody up and work around the room as people feel led to share. And that environment usually creates comfort. You know, it allows people to get in the room. And even before that, you know, there's usually a personal question, like to start the day, that says, okay, and it's funny, but it's related to the passage in some way. You know, so maybe there's a story about fear that's being told. And so what insect are you afraid of? Or, you know, just like bring something a little bit a levity into it, or something light. So
that's great. Thanks. Now let me bring you back, and I've got a follow-up question, but bring you back to where would you tell someone to start?
I definitely agree with what they say. Start small, make a first step, and I would say deal with the question, economics, what can I afford, what's feasible, and just deal with that early. I would highly recommend be on the generous side of that.
Good.
Let it be shown in the budget.
let it be a budgeted item.
If it's strategic,
If it's strategic, it deserves, and then, and you're going to have some faith in that. I don't know how this is going to bear fruit. There's enough data out there that shows it will bear fruit, but deal with economics. Then you're going to have to find the time. Okay, how can I find the time in doing this? And more than likely, most business leaders, I don't know exactly how to do it. Find somebody who fits their calling. I would very much like to do that. If it involves bringing in somebody from the outside, do it. Write that check. So I would deal with that. Deal with time and deal with money, and find a person who that's what they're going to really focus on and has the energy for that.
and you all started, I mean, I go back to when you started with your original ministry coordinator, right? He was somebody who put as a staff role that was needed, right? But then also gave him those additional ministry roles.
That's correct.
Yeah. So Hans Hobson asked the question, he'd love to know how long it took you to get a place where your company could provide the full-time life coach.
So John worked with us 2 or 3 years, and to be honest, the need for him going full time, I'm going to say he was with us probably about 2 years. Started part time, and it took close to 2 years till we realized, okay, that needs to be more full time. He didn't, from his capacity and other obligations, he couldn't quite do it. So we were always pushing that. So it took us about 2 years for that person to go from part-time to full-time.
And that was a shared full-time role then, right?
That is correct.
And then even when you transitioned out of that and you brought Holly on, she started part-time first?
Full-time.
She did start full-time.
It was already, and that was kind of part of the deal. Look, if you can't do this full-time, we can't make it work.
Yeah.
We're fortunate enough, she's in a position, I can only have something full-time as well too. But the answer, it took us about 2 years to get there. With a fair bit of energy from us saying, let's do this. But really, organically, it took 2 years to get to that.
Well, and the other thing, Dal, as you're talking, I'm thinking a piece of advice I would offer to everybody is have somebody own the portions of the program. So if you start the program, there needs to be an owner of it in order for it to drive forward. Even with marketplace chaplains, we had them in place. There wasn't a whole lot of fruit that was being, produced from that because no one was owning that internally.
Right.
And that's where we had to bring in our own ministry coordinator. And that's just a title, right? But even if it's not a title, having somebody to own that portion of the program.
That you can see in touch, and they can see and touch you on a very regular basis, not as an as needed basis, but they're just there in their natural flow. And they can understand what's happening or not happening.
They also know the strategy of the company and can help to drive that forward versus an outside vendor or somebody, program that just sits on a shelf.
One other thing too, Duane, the Greater Purpose workshops that was a huge opportunity for me. It's a funny story, but we were doing our chaplaincy program. That was kind of our launch to business as a ministry after C12. And then I went to your Greater Purpose workshop, I think it was about a year ago, and brought back to my group like 17 or 18 ideas, and they were like, we can't do this all at once. So taking those small steps, just getting all the different ideas and hearing the different impacts, that was a tremendous benefit for us.
It's same for us. And what I found was, okay, y'all got to go back with me as well the following year, because there's only so much I can convey that I felt was appropriate. And they could pick and choose what they felt like would work. So.
Right. We took our entire team to this year's and involved more people. And I think them seeing that and the benefit of that whole program was really beneficial for the group too.
Good. So that's a half-day workshop that we offer called a Greater Purpose Workshop. And we enjoy bringing those two individual companies, but we really enjoy having it in a setting where we can bring multiple companies together because of what you just experienced, Kendra.
Right.
You get to hear different ideas and go, oh, I like that.
Yes.
Here's the way I would implement on that.
Exactly.
And you create those ideas. But then when you bring your team, and your team sitting there, we've had so many members say, I had a great experience going to Greater Purpose Workshop. Even though the content was the same, it was better the next year and the next year because I kept bringing more team members and getting them involved.
Definitely.
And so they got excited about that. And part of that is look around in your company. There are people of like faith who are eager to do more. They just don't know where they can plug in with that. They have a heart for that. And there's a discipleship opportunity, a learning opportunity and training in that as well. let me, we're kind of coming toward the end of our time. We're going to keep it open for a couple more questions from online. But while they're doing that, I'd love for you all to share why are you doing this? Why continue this? What's compelled you, or what is kind of the story that's bringing you around? Dal, I'm going to start with you.
Listen, I could just this morning, I needed to go to the office just to do a couple of things, and to be honest, felt okay. I just need to touch a couple of things and touch a couple of people, but really, I needed to be touched, and boy, was I. If I cry, I'm okay. But on my keypad, I noticed an 8.511 sheet folded over, said Dal, handwritten, and I opened it up, and on there was a copy of a 60, what would resemble a 60-day chip or a 90-day chip, and those that are in recovery would understand what that means. But what it was a certification that this person just completed a very intensive outpatient work. And then below that, it said, "Thank you for doing this." And that person enrolling in that would not have happened had we not have had this well-being program. I love this person deeply as an individual, but also where we're going as an organization, some strategies. The seat that he sits in has got to be set in a healthy person.
Yeah.
If we don't have a healthy person in that seat, we're not going to achieve what we're called to achieve. And this person did some really hard work, and I'm so proud of this person. But also as a business shepherd, it's like, okay, we can move forward in this very key strategy of where we need to move into.
Awesome. Thank you. Josh?
Yeah. So for us, it's about impact. This is our, I'll say this is our ministry. It's not in Africa for us. It's not in another, state for us. It's right here in our business. And so to hear the stories of the impact that just us caring about our people has on them, their families, that's what keeps me going. And those are they just pop up in the most random times. For you this morning, it was stopping in the office. Sometimes it's in a meeting when they're sharing about some good news, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that little act of kindness that we had produced that much fruit. And so that's what keeps us going in our business. Yeah.
Thanks, Josh. Kendra?
Yeah, I think for us, we've had a shift not only after COVID, but just in the Bowling Green area, we're having tremendous industry growth. So for us to recruit and retain labor has been difficult. So one of the things that we implemented was kind of a second chance to work opportunity. And that's in various facets, but not to get into that. But not too long ago, we were doing our normal Monday interview process and had 5 or 6 people come in for interviews. And we always ask the question, like, why here? Why do you want to work here? There's all industry around. And an individual looked at our HR manager and said, well, I heard this is the place to come for second chances.
Wow.
And for me, that just, it gave it all purpose, but it also spoke to me that this is a different level of caring that we're going to have to offer. So how do I take now that next step to offer additional care? And it's not just your traditional life insurance and health insurance and bereavement, but these individuals are going to need additional resources and to know that they're cared for in a way that we haven't been doing in the past. So it just really spurred us to do more.
Yeah. And it's hard, right? It is. Because now you're adding another complexity to the job, but boy, is it worth it. It makes, at the end of the day, when you're away from your kids and your family and you come home and you're exhausted mentally and emotionally, it makes it all worth it. Yeah. So.
Awesome. Hey, thank you guys so much. Dal, Josh, Kendra, really appreciate you sharing from your experience, taking the time and the work that you're already doing. So you're already doing great work, but now you're actually just letting your light shine, letting other people see what you're doing so that hopefully they're inspired. And we want to provide some resources to folks online and watching. So 2 resources that we're going to mention that maybe if you're looking for a program to start, I want to mention 2. One is called Radical Mentoring. And Radical Mentoring is a great resource. Reggie Campbell was a designer of that years ago, and it's been ongoing now and is used really well in different companies. And so check out Radical Mentoring. We've got a link to that on our show notes. And then also I'll mention Movement Mortgage, and this is actually their movement story. So they tell the story of what they've done with that, but Movement Mortgage has a discipleship program, movement mentoring, and they talk about how you can utilize their program. So they're really open with their program, and they say, listen, this is what we've used to reach our employees and to help them grow, develop individually, but then also to grow spiritually. And it's a resource that you can have as well. Just follow their website and that'll help you in. I'm so grateful for you being a part of this show today and looking forward to our next webinar. Please share this with somebody, share the notes with somebody, share the recording. We're going to have that come out to you as an email later so you can have more information about that. Grateful. Have a great day.